Montre. I will have to take a picture of my daughter and her cheerleader squad at the indoor stadium. I still don't know how to set up the camera when they perform. High shutter speed may create noise due to light condition. I use a Nikon D750 with a 24-120 f4 lens. This is similar to what we just talked about. It's extremely hard to freeze fast-moving subjects, whether it be cars, a bicycle race, especially cheerleaders, because they are moving quickly. So I really think that you're just going to have to, not sacrifice, but you're going to have to choose. I would say go to your highest ISO possible. Highest ISO, and obviously you're going to use f4. I would suggest using f4. And give that a try. And it's true that your highest ISO possible will produce some noise, or you could call it grain. Here's the thing, and this is what I tell everybody. I would rather have a photo with some noise than no photo at all. Or I'd rather have a photo with noise than have a photo that's blurry because the shutter speed wasn't fast enough. So I would like to encourage everyone who's listening to this, take the ISO to the highest possible to test it out. And see if you are able to freeze the action. That means that the people moving, whether it be the cyclist or, for example, in your case, the cheerleader squad, are they sharp? Are they frozen? If so, then you've done your job. Okay? So don't be afraid of high ISO. By the way, your D750 should be able to do a pretty good job at the higher ISO levels. Okay, Angie, if you had to choose one lens and camera to use for all your photography needs, what would it be? So this, Angie, I like this question. This is sort of the, if you could only take one lens on a deserted island question. Now, let's just say that I had to have one lens to cover a multitude of photographic genres. And it has to last me for the rest of my life. If that was the case, I would probably choose the equivalent to what we would call a 24-70 millimeter. Now that's a full frame measurement, but in full frame cameras, a 24-70 zoom lens is going to probably be the most useful because it's still really good quality, and it will be able to cover a lot of what you need to do. The 70 millimeter is not all that telephoto, but it's some telephoto. Okay, now the second parameter is, let's just say that I only had one lens to go with my favorite subject matter. Well, my favorite subject matter to photograph is street photography within international locations. So in that case, my go-to lens is a 35 millimeter prime lens. And that's my answer. So the 35 millimeter prime lens that's a full frame equivalent. So for my Fujifilm, which is a smaller sensor, it's called an APS-C size sensor, that would be a 23 millimeter lens. And 23 times 1.5 is approximately 35 millimeter. Okay? So the answer is a 35 millimeter equivalent, which is the standard for street photography. Great question. Okay, next. Barry. When choosing your manual settings for an image, what determines which setting you select first and why? ISO, aperture, or shutter speed? This is a really good question. And for me, I choose my aperture first, all the time. Well, let me rephrase that. Anytime I'm out doing my own artwork, which is street photography or travel photography, I always do my aperture first. Now, I'd like to preface this by saying that people in different genres of photography will choose different parameters based on their subject matter, okay? But for me, at least, it's always aperture because I want to make sure I have the ability to alter the artistic aspects of moving the aperture. For example, do I want more blur behind the person or less blur? Do I want to freeze the action as much as possible? So maybe I'd go to f2. So for me, it's Aperture. And to be honest, when I'm in high-paced, fast-paced moving situations, I just use auto ISO. And a lot of purists would scream and say, no, you can't use auto ISO. And I would say, yes, you can. You can do anything you want. Okay, Peter, I'd like to ask you how I can create color detail in black and white photography. Now, Peter, I think you're meaning that there's this like one section of the photo is color while the rest is black and white. If that's the case, then yeah, there's so many apps. They're called Color Pop or Color Splash apps. So all you need to do, and I'm not sure if you're using an Android or an iPhone, so I can't give you the exact app, but there's so many great options on the app stores for this Color Splash or Color Pop. And that's all you have to do is type that into Google and choose whether it's the iPhone version or Android, and you should be all set. And what that allows you to do is to have a black and white image, but one aspect is in color. And that, of course, is really useful if, who knows, the traditional view is you have that red rose, and that red rose is red, and everything else is black. So that's good. Give it a try. Those are great apps. Okay, Susan. My question is this. In the sunset assignment of photo shortcuts, you suggested shooting the sun with an f8 aperture priority and telephoto lens. I did so using a tripod and a 55 to 210 millimeter lens at 125 millimeter ISO 100. Taking a picture every minute, my sun was undifferentiated blazing blob, not well-defined orb, so of course it was impossible to capture it bisected by the horizon. Okay, yeah, the answer is really simple. You just need to use your exposure compensation. Okay, so that's your plus and minus button. So you, by the way, you did everything right. F8 was perfect. But there's an exposure compensation button on your camera. It is minus and plus, and you just need to go to the minus. And by going to the minus, you will no longer have that blob of light from the sun. You will actually have a clearly defined sun. So going to the minuses means you're underexposing the picture, you're making it darker, and this will solve your problem. Okay, everybody, that's it. Those are the questions. Thank you so much. I really had fun answering them, and I really hope you got a lot out of it. And check out markhemmings.com for more wonderful free stuff, plus my portfolio of photos from around the world, and of course my photo workshops. I would love for you to come with me to Jerusalem, to Japan, to Mexico, to Jordan, to so many other great locations around the world, the Caribbean. I'm missing some, I have quite a few. Check them out at markhemmings.com. All the best, happy photography, and enjoy the day. Take a lot of pictures and have fun with your art. Bye-bye.